The security chief struck Elena Marquez for refusing to open the west gate. Bedavn. The plus-size housekeeper would lose her 8-year job, while a convoy waited outside under her stolen approval. When Matteo Santoro found her bruised at the kitchen sink, Elena did not ask for revenge. She placed a cancelled service tag in his hand. "Lock the west gate," she said. He turned it over and found a signature that could not be hers. Matteo Santoro locked the west gate before asking why Elena had warned him. His order traveled through the kitchen faster than the fear already filling it. "West gate sealed." One guard confirmed into his radio. "No vehicle enters or leaves without my direct authorization." Elena remained beside the marble sink with both hands under cold water. A purple mark darkened one cheek, and another crossed the side of her neck. Her pink uniform was clean, except for flour pressed into one sleeve. She had been ordered to finish the kitchen before surrendering her room key. Matteo turned the cancelled service tag over in his hand. The number 417 had been printed above a faded red line. Beneath it sat an approval mark, shaped like Elena's initials. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "From the lead van, waiting beyond the west gate." Damien Vale stepped forward from behind the two guards. The security chief wore a dark suit and the expression of an insulted officer. "She took it from my inspection table," Damien said. Elena shut off the water. "I removed it from a catering cart that should not exist." Damien gave a small, humorless laugh. "She was dismissed 20 minutes ago for interfering with security." Matteo looked from him to the bruise on Elena's face. "Who dismissed her? I did." "Who struck her?" Damien's jaw hardened. "She became aggressive when we collected her access badge." Elena reached for a clean towel and dried her hands slowly. "I refused to sign a false incident report." Two maids stood near the pantry door with their eyes lowered. The chef stared at the floor between his polished shoes. Neither guard looked at Elena. Matteo studied each face before returning to Damien. "Did you hit her?" "I stopped her from creating a scene." "That was not my question." Damien glanced toward the watching staff. She pushed past an officer. Elena folded the towel and placed it beside the sink. "Ask Officer Lane which direction I was facing." The younger guard swallowed. She was facing the counter. "Sir." And were her hands raised? "No." "Sir." Damien turned on him. "You were told to document insubordination, not invent sympathy." The guard's face lost color. Matteo lifted one hand. No one spoke after that. He crossed the kitchen and stopped several feet from Elena. He did not reach for her face or ask permission to inspect the bruise. "Do you need a doctor?" "I need the gate kept closed." That answer does not cancel the first question. "I can see a doctor after the convoy is contained." Her voice stayed level, but her fingers tightened around the sink edge. Matteo noticed the movement. He also noticed that she had not once asked him to punish Damien. "What makes the convoy dangerous?" "The tag in your hand was cancelled 3 months ago." Damien answered before Matteo could. "Service numbers are reused during large events." "No," Elena said. Everyone looked at her. She did not raise her voice. That series was retired after a duplicate cart reached the family corridor. The digital system cleared the convoy. Damien said, "The digital system does not issue physical tags. My department issued them. Your department requests them." Elena looked directly at Matteo. "I assign them, record them, and reconcile every number after delivery." Damien stepped between them. "She cleans rooms and tracks pantry carts." Matteo's gaze sharpened. "Who taught her to reconcile gate credentials?" "No one needed to teach me." Elena nodded toward the kitchen office. 8 years ago. A power failure erased 2 days of delivery records. 3 vendors demanded payment for loads that never arrived. I built a paper sequence so every cart and vehicle left a physical trail. The chef finally looked up. She also rebuilt the staff routes after the east stairwell renovation. One maid spoke from the pantry, and she catches schedule conflicts before security sees them. Damien faced the staff. This is not a testimonial meeting. No, Matteo said. It is the first honest explanation I have heard since entering this room. He held up tag 400, or Suten. Who signed the monthly reconciliation? Damien's silence lasted 1 second too long. My office signs it. Elena asked who signed it. Matteo said. Damien's expression tightened. I did. Elena pointed to the faded red line across the tag. That mark means the entire batch was removed from circulation. Numbers 401 through 425 were sealed in rejected stock. Where was that stock kept? In the security storage room. Damien shook his head. Household operations had access to that room. Until 6 months ago. Elena said. You changed the lock and removed my authorization. Matteo turned to one of the guards. Confirm that. The guard touched his earpiece, then spoke into his radio. A reply came within seconds. Household access was revoked in February. Sir. Damien spread his hands. That proves she resented the change. It proves she could not retrieve the tag. Matteo said. It proves nothing about who used it. Elena met his eyes. That is why I told you to lock the gate. Not arrest anyone. For the first time, Matteo saw more than fear in the room. The kitchen staff were watching Elena, the way trained men watched a commander. They were waiting for her to tell them where to stand. A phone rang inside the kitchen office. No one moved to answer it. Elena looked toward the sound. That will be produce delivery, asking why the north entrance is blocked. The chef blinked. How could you know that? Because Damien moved the north guards to the family wing. He left the west gate staffed for the convoy. Damien's voice grew colder. You have no authority to question my deployment. She questioned the result. Matteo said, and she was right about the call. The phone stopped. A second later, a radio reported a produce truck waiting at the north entrance. Matteo looked at Damien without speaking. Damien adjusted one cuff. A security operation requires flexible staffing. Then explain why the cancelled tag carries Elena's approval. She must have signed it before losing access. Elena reached into her apron pocket. The guards tensed. She removed a small brass key and placed it on the counter. My work locker is beside the laundry office. Inside is the carbon copybook for every service tag issued this year. Damien took one step forward. That book is property of this estate. It is evidence belonging to the system you told everyone did not matter. Matteo placed himself between Damien and the counter. No one touches her locker except Elena. Damien's face changed for the first time. The reaction was brief, but Matteo saw it. So now, a housekeeper controls a security investigation. No, Elena said. The person holding the original record controls whether you can rewrite it. Silence settled across the copper pans and polished stone. Matteo handed the tag back to her. You will open the locker. I will. You will explain the record. I will explain what I can authenticate. And afterward, I leave as instructed. Matteo looked at the folded dismissal paper beside the sink. You are not dismissed. Elena did not thank him. You cannot restore a job I no longer accept. The words struck harder than anger would have. Damien almost smiled. Matteo did not. He turned toward the office. Bring me every gate log from the last 24 hours. Damien lifted his chin. My team can handle that. Your team held an unarmed employee while you struck her. My team will not handle anything until I know who it serves. The guards separated from Damien without being told twice. One entered the office and returned with a tablet. Matteo opened the Westgate authorization record. The convoy appeared at the top of the screen. 6 vehicles had been cleared under Elena Marquez's credentials. The approval time was 2:17 that morning. Matteo looked toward her. Where were you? At 2:17, Elena's expression did not change. 70 miles from this estate. The guard scrolled to her personnel log. Elena had surrendered her badge at 1043 the previous night, yet the system showed her approving the convoy more than 3 hours later. Matteo read the authorization time again. Your badge was inactive. My badge was inactive. Elena said. My credentials were not. Damien moved closer to the tablet. A delayed entry could explain the timestamp. The guard shook his head before fear stopped him. The system recorded a live approval. Sir. Damien's stare pinned him in place. Matteo took the tablet from the guard. What did a live approval require? A password and Elena's 6-digit verification code. Could Elena have entered them remotely? No. Sir. Why not? The approval terminal is inside the Westgate office. Matteo turned the screen toward Damian, who had access to that office. At 2:17, half my night team. Give me their names. I will compile them. You will name them now. Damien named 3 guards and a shift lieutenant. Elena listened without interrupting. When he finished, she looked at the tablet. He left out one person. Damien gave her a warning look. Matteo caught it. Who Elena does not know my overnight deployment. I know who signs the cart transfers, she said. The Westgate office cannot issue a service tag until rejected stock is released from security storage. Matteo waited. Elena met Damien's eyes. The release required the chief's key. Damien's face stayed controlled. That rule changed during the spring audit. No. Elena removed the brass key from the counter. You proposed changing it. I rejected the change because it allowed one person to create and approve the same movement. You had no authority to reject a security protocol. I had responsibility for reconciling the result. That is not authority. It became authority every time you needed the numbers to balance. The chef lowered his head as if the sentence had named something he had watched for years. Matteo looked around the kitchen. How often did that happen? No one answered at first. Then the older maid near the pantry raised her hand halfway. Every week. Sir. Damien laughed once. She corrected delivery sheets. She rebuilt them. The maid said, after your office sent them back wrong. The chef stepped forward. Food service would have shut down during the winter summit without her. A second maid spoke from beside the copper rack. She made the emergency staffing map. Damien turned toward them. Be careful what you call expertise. Elena's voice remained calm. They are describing work, not giving me a title. Matteo studied her. Did Damien present your system as his? He signed the reports. That was not my question. Elena looked at the dismissal notice near the sink. I corrected the errors. He signed the reports. Matteo said, yes. The answer changed the room more than an accusation would have. Matteo handed the tablet to a guard who no longer stood beside Damien. Remove Chief Vale's administrative access. Damien's expression sharpened. You cannot suspend estate security during a family session. I did not suspend estate security. Matteo held his gaze. I suspended you. Damien glanced toward the guards. Neither moved. You are trusting a bruised employee over your own brother. My brother would answer a direct question. Your housekeeper is manipulating a routine discrepancy. Elena picked up the cancelled tag. A routine discrepancy does not arrive in 6 matching vehicles. Matteo looked toward the clock above the pantry. The family session would begin in 64 minutes. Open the locker, he said. Elena took 1 step, then stopped. I need Officer Lane to come with me. Damien smiled without warmth. Afraid I planted something. I want a witness who already told the truth once. Officer Lane looked surprised. Matteo nodded. You choose every person who accompanies you. Elena chose Lane, the chef, and the older maid. She did not choose Matteo. He accepted the boundary and followed several paces behind them. Damien tried to join the group. 2 guards blocked his path. The laundry corridor smelled faintly of starch and hot metal. Elena's locker stood at the far end, beneath a row of staff notices. A fresh scratch crossed the brass plate around its keyhole. She crouched without touching it. That was not there at breakfast. Damien called from the kitchen doorway. Old lockers collect scratches. Elena looked at Lane. Photograph the lock before I open it. Lane used the estate tablet and captured the plate from 3 angles. Elena inserted her key. It turned without resistance. She paused. My lock usually catches after the first quarter turn. Matteo stood beside the laundry carts. Has it been replaced? The cylinder has. Damien raised his voice. This is becoming theater. Elena opened the door. Her spare shoes, folded cardigan, and canvas lunch bag remained inside. The metal recipe box sat beneath a stack of cleaning schedules. She lifted it with both hands and placed it on an empty cart. A strip of blue paper seal crossed the lid. Her initials covered one edge. Lane examined it. The seal is intact. Photograph it. He did. Elena broke the seal and opened the box. Inside lay a narrow carbon copy book with a pale pink cover. Matteo recognized Damien's signature on the monthly verification label. How many people knew this existed? Every department head who signed the reconciliation policy. Damien folded his arms. No one uses that book for security decisions. Then why did you verify it every month? Matteo asked. Administrative compliance. Elena opened the book to the final week of April. She did not hand it to Matteo. She kept one palm beneath the spine and turned the pages herself. Tags 401 through 425 were issued as one batch. Each numbered sheet carried a matching carbon copy. At tag 409, a red line crossed the remaining pages. Elena pointed to the notation beneath it. Batch cancelled after a duplicate cart reached the family corridor. Why does the record stop at 409? Matteo asked. It does not. She angled the book under the laundry light. The numbered sheets from 410 through 425 had been removed, but their carbon layers remained. Rejected tags stay attached to the book until they are destroyed with a witness. Who witnessed the destruction? No one. Damien spoke quickly. Because Elena failed to schedule it. I scheduled it 3 times. She turned to the back cover. 3 dates had been entered beside 3 security cancellations. Each cancellation carried Damien's initials. Matteo read them in silence. Damien's voice hardened. A cancelled appointment is not evidence of theft. No, Elena said. The pressure marks are. She returned to the carbon beneath tag 417. At first, Matteo saw only pale grooves. Elena tilted the page toward the side light. Indentations appeared across the surface. Someone had written on the missing original after the batch was cancelled. "You can read that?" Matteo asked. "I can read the sequence." She traced the air above the page without touching it. Westgate. Six vehicles. Temporary kitchen access. Family session. Priority. Matteo looked at the tag in her other hand. The wording matched. Damien stepped against the guards, blocking him. She copied the information after taking the gate tag. Elena turned to a blank sheet beneath the damaged carbon. Pressure transfers downward, not upward. The chef released a quiet breath. Matteo's eyes remained on Damien. When was the original removed? Elena checked the page edges. After the cancellation line was written. Can you establish a date? Not yet. Damien seized on the answer. Then she has established nothing. Elena closed the book halfway. I established that someone entered, locked security storage, removed cancelled credentials, wrote a convoy order over the retained carbon, and returned the book without breaking my seal. Matteo looked at the intact blue strip lying beside the box. How could the book be returned without breaking it? It was never removed. Elena turned toward her locker. The missing tags were taken before I sealed the book. Who knew you were going to seal it? The person who ordered me to stop maintaining paper records. Every face turned toward Damien. He did not flinch. I ordered an outdated process retired. You ordered it, retired the morning after the batch was cancelled, Elena said. Matteo stepped closer to the book. Why did you keep it? Because a digital record can show what someone entered. Elena rested her hand on the cover. This shows when the physical sequence became impossible. A radio crackled from the kitchen. The Westgate supervisor requested permission to inspect the convoy manually. Damien called toward the doorway. Approve the inspection. No, Elena said. The guards looked to Matteo. He looked to her. Why? If they know we found the cancelled tag, they will change the vehicles or abandon them. Damien shook his head. Letting them remain outside creates a public security risk. Opening the inspection lane brings them within the outer barrier. Elena checked the clock in the corridor. Keep them where they are and tell them the hydraulic arm failed. Matteo took the radio. Westgate. Report a mechanical failure. Damien stared at him. You are taking tactical instructions from household staff. I am taking a useful instruction from the person who found the breach. The answer landed cleanly. Matteo ordered Lane to scan every page without separating the binding. Elena watched each image transfer to a secured folder. When the scan finished, Matteo asked where she had been at 217. New Haven. For what reason Elena closed the recipe box, signing an employment contract. Matteo said nothing for a moment. Damien smiled. So, she planned to leave before tonight. Yes, Elena said. I planned to leave a house that used my work, but denied me the authority to protect it. The radio crackled again. This time, the message came from the surveillance room. Westgate cameras had been disabled for scheduled maintenance. Matteo asked who authorized the shutdown. The answer stripped the last trace of warmth from his face. The maintenance order carried Matteo Santoro's personal approval. Matteo stared at the maintenance order bearing his personal approval. The document had been filed at 152 that morning, 25 minutes before Elena's credentials cleared the convoy. I did not authorize this, he said. Damien leaned toward the tablet. Your office approves routine maintenance in advance. My office does. My signature does not appear without my consent. Damien remained composed. Then someone in administration made an error. Elena closed the carbon copybook. An error explains the name on the screen. It does not explain tag 417. Matteo looked at her. What is the difference? The digital order tells you what someone wanted the system to believe. She rested one hand on the pale pink cover. The physical sequence tells you what that person had to touch. Damien's mouth tightened. She is asking you to trust paper over your own security network. No, Elena said. I am asking him to trust a record you could not edit after the fact. Matteo handed the tablet to Officer Lane. Preserve the maintenance order and every revision attached to it. Damien stepped forward. That network falls under my command. It did. Matteo faced the two senior guards waiting in the corridor. Escort, mister. Veil to the blue sitting room. He keeps his phone, but he does not contact security, vendors, or the gate. Damien gave a quiet laugh. You are confining the man responsible for protecting this family during an active threat. I am separating the threat from the man who may have created it. You have one obsolete tag and the word of an employee who already planned to leave. Matteo glanced toward Elena. She did not forge the time on her inactive badge. She could have shared her password. Elena lifted her eyes. I changed that password yesterday morning. Damien stopped speaking. Matteo noticed. Why did you change it? Someone approved 2 linen carts under my credentials while I was in the basement. Did you report it? To Chief Vale. Matteo looked back at Damien. What did you do with that report? I found no breach. You told me the terminal recorded live approvals. It does. Then how did you find no breach? Damien's voice hardened. Because her staff share procedures, devices, and notes. My staff share instructions. Elena said, they do not share my verification code. Matteo's expression went still. You knew someone was using her credentials. I knew she had poor control of them. You removed her access instead of examining the terminal. I contained the risk. Elena looked at the bruise reflected faintly in the locker door. That was what he called it. The guards moved to either side of Damien. He did not resist. As he passed Elena, he lowered his voice. This house will collapse before you reach the driveway. Elena held his gaze. It should not have needed me to survive you. The guards escorted him down the corridor. Matteo waited until the door closed behind them. Then he turned to Elena. I need you to remain until this is resolved. No. The answer came without anger. Matteo had heard refusals delivered as threats, negotiations, and challenges. Elena's refusal sounded like a completed decision. The convoy is still outside my gate, and the gate is closed. My family arrives in less than an hour. Then your security officers should secure them. You just demonstrated that my officers do not understand the service system. I demonstrated that your chief never allowed them to understand it. Matteo took a breath before answering. What would make you stay? Nothing you should offer while I am bruised. Dismissed. And surrounded by armed men, Officer Lane lowered his eyes. Matteo looked at the workers gathered near the kitchen entrance. They were watching him now. Not Elena. He understood what she had forced him to see. Any agreement made in that corridor would carry the weight of his house, his guards, and her missing paycheck. It would not be consent. He stepped aside. You are free to leave. Elena nodded once. The original book leaves with me. I need it. You have authenticated scans. I may need the physical pages. My attorney has instructions to preserve them. Matteo looked at the blue seal, the photographed lock, and Lane's secured copies. He wanted the book inside his vault. Wanting, it did not make it his. "You keep it," he said. Elena returned the book to the metal box. "I also need my final wages, unused leave, and the belongings from my room. They will be ready." They were due before you entered the kitchen. Matteo accepted the correction. "Lane, take her wherever she asks." Elena shook her head. "No estate vehicle. Then choose a driver outside my organization. I already arranged one." She lifted her canvas lunch bag from the locker. Matteo noticed that nothing in the compartment suggested a sudden departure. Her spare shoes were wrapped. Her cardigan had been folded. A train schedule rested beneath the lunch bag. She had been preparing to leave long before Damien struck her. "Where are you going?" he asked. That is no longer an employment question. No. Matteo did not soften the truth with an excuse. It was a personal one. Elena closed the locker. "I am not ready to answer it." She walked back toward the kitchen. The staff parted for her, without waiting for an order. At the sink, she collected the dismissal notice and placed it inside her bag. The older maid stepped forward. "Elena." "I should have said something." "Yes," Elena said. The woman's face crumpled. Elena did not rescue her from the shame. "You can say it in a written statement." The chef removed his apron. "I will sign one." "So will I," Officer Lane said. On by one. The employees who had looked away began offering names, times, and incidents. Elena listened, but did not thank them for arriving late. "Write only what you saw," she said. "Do not improve it because you feel guilty." Matteo watched her organize witnesses while refusing to reclaim the job that had made her invisible. She assigned no tasks to herself. Within minutes, Lane had opened a secured incident file independent of Damien's command. The chef sent staff to separate rooms so their accounts could not influence one another. The older maid began listing employees Damien had disciplined without civilian review. Matteo had believed his house ran on clear authority. He now saw that it had run on Elena, translating bad authority into workable instructions. When she stopped translating, the failures arrived immediately. A radio reported that the North produce truck had been turned away. The conference kitchen had received seafood intended for the lakeside property. 2 service elevators had been reserved for the same delivery team. The family dining room had no allergy chart. A refrigeration alarm had gone unanswered because Damien had reassigned the facility's runner. The errors sounded minor when heard separately. Together, they formed a system, losing its memory. Matteo looked at the department heads. "Who normally resolves these conflicts?" No one answered. He already knew. Elena walked upstairs to the narrow employee room she had occupied for 8 years. Her suitcase stood beside the bed, fully packed. A navy coat hung from the door. On the desk lay a signed employment agreement from Rosebridge Sr., living in Connecticut. The title beneath her name read, Facilities Operations Manager. The salary was nearly twice what Santoro Hospitality had paid her. Housing was included. Her start date was Monday. Matteo remained outside the open door. He did not enter. "You had another position before Damien dismissed you." "I had another future." "Why did you never ask me for this title here?" "I asked 3 times for authority equal to the responsibility." "What answer did you receive?" "That Chief Vale would evaluate my readiness." Matteo looked down the corridor. Damien had controlled the evaluation of the woman whose work exposed his failures. "I did not know." Elena zipped the final pocket of her suitcase. "You benefited from not knowing." The sentence left him nowhere to hide. Officer Lane arrived with a sealed envelope. "Final wages, unused leave. And the separation payment Mr. Santoro authorized. Elena did not take it. What? Separation payment? 6 months' salary. I did not negotiate that. Matteo spoke from the doorway. It is not payment for your silence or cooperation. Then state that in writing. Lane handed him the envelope. Matteo wrote across the settlement cover. No confidentiality requirement. No release of claims. No obligation to assist the investigation. He signed beneath the words and returned it. Elena read every line before accepting it. My attorney will review this. He should. Her phone displayed a message from the driver waiting beyond the employee entrance. She pulled on her coat and lifted the suitcase herself. Matteo did not take it from her. He walked beside her as far as the rear vestibule. Will you answer if I call? That depends on why you call. What reason would be acceptable? The truth. Outside. Rain had begun tapping against the service awning. A silver sedan waited beyond the inner drive. Elena stopped before stepping through the door. Do not open the west gate, because the kitchen falls behind. Matteo looked toward the dark line of trees, hiding the outer wall. Is that what Damien expects? He expects you to confuse disorder with danger. She entered the sedan without looking back. 20 minutes later. The estate had lost 3 deliveries, 2 staff schedules, and control of the service elevators. The family council demanded an explanation for the locked gate. From the blue sitting room, Damien requested permission to address them. Matteo refused. Then, a senior guard arrived with the emergency operations charter. If the service failure threatens the family session, the security chief can order an alternate entrance opened. Matteo checked the clock. 41 minutes remained. The guard placed Damien's written recommendation on the table. It ordered the west gate opened immediately. Matteo folded Damien's recommendation and placed it beneath the emergency charter. The west gate remains closed. Councilman Victor Santoro pushed back from the conference table. You shut down the estate 40 minutes before the family session. I shut down one entrance connected to forged credentials. Victor glanced toward the senior guard. The charter allows the security chief to open an alternate route during operational failure. The security chief is suspended. Suspension does not erase his assessment. Matteo turned the charter toward Victor. It also does not make his assessment an order. At the far end of the room, Matteo's mother sat beside the cold fireplace. Lucia Santoro was 72, silver-haired, and unimpressed by voices raised for her benefit. What does the woman who found the forged tag recommend? She asked. Victor looked offended. The housekeeper has left. That was not my question. Matteo answered. She recommended keeping the convoy beyond the outer barrier. And why is she no longer here? No one at the table moved. Matteo did not hide behind Damien. Because my authority was used to humiliate her until leaving became safer than staying. Lucia studied her son. Then, correct what can be corrected, and stop asking injured people to make your decisions. A guard entered with another tablet. The convoy supervisor says the food will spoil unless we begin inspection. How long have the refrigeration units been running? Matteo asked. According to their manifest, 4 hours. Elena's warning returned to him. Damien expected disorder to look like danger. Request the temperature records from each vehicle. The guard made the call. The convoy supervisor refused, claiming the data belonged to the catering company. Matteo looked at Victor. A legitimate refrigerated convoy would offer temperature records before risking a rejected delivery. Victor's confidence weakened. What do you intend to do? Preserve the gate. Isolate Damian. And and verify every approval he touched. That will take hours. Then the session moves. Victor stood. You cannot move 23 family members because a maid found an old piece of paper. Lucia's cane struck the floor once. She found the breach your professionals missed. Victor sat down. Matteo dismissed the council until the estate could be secured. Lucia remained after the others left. You want to call Elena? She said. I need to know how the service routes connect to the family wing. You have architects, guards, and building plans. None of them noticed 6 vehicles using cancelled tags. Lucia watched him reach for his phone. Do not ask her to return before she is free to refuse. Matteo lowered the phone. He called Officer Lane instead. Send Elena the gate logs. Convoy manifest. Emergency charter. And current staff map. Do not request assistance. Tell her the records are hers, to review only if she chooses. Lane hesitated. Should I include Damien's recommendation? Include everything. And the incident statements, those belong to the investigation. Not to my argument. Matteo ended the call. Lucia nodded once. That sounded almost like respect. Almost. Respect begins before you need something. At the hotel, 12 miles away, Elena stood before a bathroom mirror with ice wrapped inside a hand towel. The bruise on her cheek had deepened, but the swelling had begun to ease. Her suitcase remained closed near the door. On the desk, the Rosebridge contract waited beside a train ticket and a handwritten list of apartment questions. Her future was quiet, practical, and already hers. The message from Officer Lane arrived without a request. Estate records attached. No obligation to respond. Elena nearly deleted it. Then she saw the current staff map in the preview. The kitchen team had been moved from the North Service Hall to the West Staging Corridor. She set down the ice. That transfer made no operational sense. The West Corridor was narrower, farther from refrigeration, and connected directly to the private elevator. Elena opened the convoy manifest. 6 vehicles carried linens, warming cabinets, floral cases, bottled water, temporary tables, and replacement kitchen staff. The list appeared ordinary because each item belonged at a family session. The order did not. Linens should arrive before tables. Tables should arrive before warming cabinets. Replacement staff should report after equipment inspection. This manifest reversed the sequence. It placed people inside before security could see what the equipment concealed. Elena opened the staff map again. 43 civilian employees had been assigned to the West Staging Corridor. Most were housekeepers, dishwashers, kitchen assistants, and temporary servers. They had no radios connected to security. If the convoy entered, those workers would stand between the private elevator and anyone moving through the service hall. Elena checked the emergency charter. Damien had cited operational failure as grounds to open the gate. He had created that failure by pulling staff from the north entrance, disabling the service elevators, and redirecting deliveries. The disorder was not a side effect. It was the key. Her phone rang. Matteo's name appeared on the screen. Elena let it ring twice before answering. You sent records instead of an apology disguised as an emergency. I was advised not to ask an injured woman to solve my problem. Good advice. Was the map useful? Yes. Matteo waited. Elena appreciated that he did not fill the silence with authority. The convoy is not carrying enough food for the number of guests listed, she said. How far short? It is not short. It was never intended to feed them. Matteo rose from the conference table. What was it intended to do? Occupy the west staging corridor. With what people? Carts. And cases large enough to block both exits. Matteo looked toward the estate plan on the wall. The private elevator opens into that corridor. Yes. My mother uses that elevator. Elena checked the family schedule. Lucia was expected downstairs at 8. The convoy's temporary access began at 7:52. Move her now. Where? Not through the main hall. Damien's team controls the cameras there. Use the linen lift behind her dressing room. Matteo frowned. There is no linen lift on the plan. It was sealed from public access during the renovation. Can it still operate? I kept it inspected because your mother refused to let us discard furniture through her bedroom. Despite the danger, Matteo almost smiled. That sounds like her. It is not a joke. No. His voice returned to business. Tell me how to reach it. Elena gave him the route, then stopped. Matteo, who was guarding Damien, 2 men from the daytime team, did either work the West Gate last night. He checked the roster. 1 did. Replace him. Why? Because the same team that cleared the convoy should not control the only person who can warn it. Matteo issued the order while keeping her on the line. The response came back almost immediately. Damien was no longer in the blue sitting room. 1 guard had been found unconscious after drinking coffee brought from the staff pantry. The second claimed Damien had been transferred under Matteo's verbal order. Matteo's voice went quiet. I gave no such order. Elena looked at the manifest timestamp. 33 minutes remained. Then he is moving toward the west control room. I can lock the inner doors. He designed the electronic locks. What do you suggest? Mechanical containment? Explain. The fire shutters in the laundry corridor close with manual chains. They divide the west control room from the family elevator. Who can operate them? Facilities. Staff. Facilities is missing. Its runner. Because Damien reassigned him. Matteo understood. He removed every person who could close his route. Yes. Elena looked at her suitcase. The car to Connecticut would arrive before dawn. She could close the laptop, call her attorney, and let the Santoro family face the system it had chosen. Then she pictured the older maid beside the pantry. She pictured the chef offering his statement too late. She pictured 43 workers standing in a corridor because they had been trained to obey schedules carrying someone else's authority. Their silence had failed her. That did not make their lives disposable. Move your mother through the linen lift, Elena said. Then clear every civilian from the west staging corridor. My staff does not know the alternate routes. I know. Matteo did not ask the question. Elena heard him refusing to turn her conscience into another order. She closed the Rosebridge folder and placed it inside her suitcase. My conditions come before I cross your gate. Name them. No guard touches me. Agreed. The original book stays in my hands. Agreed. No one interrupts when I explain the record. Agreed. I leave the moment I decide the danger is contained. Agreed. And returning does not cancel my dismissal. Settlement. New job. Or right to bring a claim. I will put that in writing before you arrive. Elena picked up her coat. I am not returning for you. I understand. I am returning for the people in that corridor. I understand that too. She called the hotel desk and requested a taxi. Matteo sent the written terms before she reached the elevator. She forwarded them to her attorney and gave no further promise. At the estate, guards moved Lucia through the concealed linen lift. Kitchen workers were told to leave the west staging area in groups of 4. No alarm sounded. No one ran. Damien still believed the corridor remained full. Elena arrived at the north entrance with 24 minutes left. Officer Lane waited alone beyond the barrier. He showed her his empty hands before approaching. The written conditions are logged with the council secretary. Who controls the west gate now, Mr. Santoro, directly. Who controls the fire shutters? No one. The facilities runner has not been found. Elena walked past him. Then take me to the laundry corridor. Matteo met her outside the service elevator. He had removed his white jacket and rolled his black sleeves to the forearms. He did not reach for her suitcase or the metal box in her hand. Elena, my mother is secure. The staff, 39, are clear. 4 remain unaccounted for. Names he gave them. Elena knew each assignment without checking a list. They cleaned the private rooms on the 2nd floor. They should not be near the staging corridor. Lane said. They are not workers. Elena replied. Matteo looked at her. What are they? Names added to make the staff count balance. She opened the carbon copy book and compared the convoy manifest with the rejected tag sequence. The same 4 names appeared beneath a pressure mark on tag 417. Elena traced the intended route from the west gate to the service hall. It did not end at the council chamber. It turned beneath the private elevator used by one person. She looked at Matteo. The convoy was never coming for the meeting. She placed her finger on the final destination. It was coming for your mother. Matteo studied the route beneath Elena's finger. Why would Damien target my mother instead of the council? Because the council can replace him. Elena closed the carbon copy book. Your mother can expose him. Lucia had approved the original security budget and personally reviewed every unexplained increase. If she compared Damien's invoices with Elena's rejected service records, the missing money would become visible. Matteo looked toward Officer Lane. Move every available guard to my mother. No, Elena said. Matteo stopped. Damien expects that response. He wants you to strip the service corridors and protect one room. What would you do? I would protect the route. Not advertise the person. Elena opened the staff map on Lane's tablet. She marked the linen lift, the laundry corridor, and the mechanical shutters separating the west wing. Keep 2 guards with Lucia. Send everyone else to exits. Damien cannot monitor electronically. Lane studied the map. These doors do not appear in the security program. They were built before the electronic system. Elena pointed toward the old laundry hall. Damien called them obsolete. So, he never learned how the staff still used them. Matteo handed Lane the tablet. Follow her plan. Lane left without looking toward Matteo for confirmation a second time. Elena heard the shift in obedience. This time, the room followed her knowledge rather than Matteo's name. She walked toward the laundry corridor. Matteo stayed beside her, but did not move ahead. You said 4 names were false. They were copied from former employees. How do you know? Because I sent condolence flowers to one family, retirement papers to another, and final pay records for the other 2. All 4 are dead or gone. None could be working tonight. Matteo's expression hardened. Damien expected no one to recognize them. He expected the people who would recognize them to be too busy serving dinner. They reached the first manual shutter. The chain hung inside a narrow wall cabinet, secured by a brass latch. Elena opened it and pulled once. The metal barrier descended halfway before catching above the floor. Matteo gripped the chain. It is jammed. No. Elena crouched and examined the track. A catering wedge is blocking it. A black rubber stop had been forced beneath the guide rail. It looked like ordinary kitchen equipment. Elena removed it with the handle of a mop. The shutter dropped into place with a heavy final sound. Matteo looked at the wedge. Someone prepared this corridor. Someone who knew facilities staff would blame an old mechanism. Her phone vibrated. The Westgate supervisor had sent a direct message through the household scheduling system. Hydraulic arm repaired. Convoy requests entry in 12 minutes. Elena showed Matteo the screen. The arm was never broken. Our excuse has expired. No. She typed a reply. Inspection delayed by refrigeration leak. Remain outside the outer barrier. Matteo watched her send it under her own name. They may know you returned. They will know someone understands the sequence. A warning light flashed above the corridor door. The second fire shutter had begun rising. No one ordered that. Matteo said. Electronic override from the West control room. Elena moved to the next wall cabinet. The latch had been removed. Matteo reached for the opening. She caught his wrist before his hand entered. Do not. He stopped immediately. A cut electrical wire rested against the metal housing. Would that have injured me? It would have made your hand close around the chain. Elena used the wooden mop handle to push the wire aside. Damien did not need to defeat every guard. He needed to keep this route open. Matteo looked at the damaged cabinet. He knew the old system after all. He knew enough to sabotage it. Elena pulled the chain. The second shutter descended. Before it reached the floor, a man struck it from the other side. Facilities. A voice called, Open this barrier. Elena recognized the missing runner. Mr. Bell. Step away from the shutter. Miss Marquez. Are you alone? There was a pause. No. Matteo moved toward the side door. Elena blocked him. If Damian is beside him. Opening that door gives him the corridor. What do you suggest? She pressed the old maintenance intercom. Mr. Bell. Describe what you can see without naming anyone. The runner's breathing sounded uneven. Black shoes. A blue carpet. One service cart. Is the cart between you and the West control room? Yes. Elena knew the corridor dimensions. Push it against the control room door. A second voice shouted from behind him. The intercom went dead. Matteo reached inside his shirt for his phone. We cannot leave him there. We will not. Elena looked toward the linen shelves. She removed 2 long steel poles used to lift hanging covers. Lane needs to enter through the pressing room. That door is sealed. Only from this side. She gave Matteo 1 pole. Hold the shutter 6 inches above the floor when I raise it. You are not crawling under it. I did not say I was. She called Lane and directed him through the pressing room, using turns no security plan recorded. Then, she raised the shutter, just enough for Matteo to brace it, through the narrow opening. Elena saw Mr. Bell's shoes beside the overturned service cart. Another pair of shoes stood near the control room door. Polished black leather. Damian's. Elena pushed the second steel pole beneath the shutter. Mr. Bell. Take this, and slide it through the cartwheels. The runner dropped to one knee and obeyed. The pole locked the cart against the door handles. Damien struck the cart from inside the control room. It shifted less than an inch. Lane's team entered from the pressing room. They pulled Mr. Bell clear and secured the corridor without firing a shot. Matteo lowered the shutter, for the first time since Elena returned. He released a breath. You knew the cart would hold. I knew its brakes were broken. That sounds like another failure you had been compensating for. I submitted 6 replacement requests. To Damien, to the man who signed every denial. Lane reported through the radio. The West control room was contained. But Damien had locked himself inside. He still controlled the outer cameras and the convoy communication channel. Matteo raised the radio. Damien. Open the door. Damien answered with calm amusement. So the maid came back. Elena took the radio from Matteo. The civilian corridor is empty. The shutters are closed. The 4 names on your manifest belong to people who cannot arrive. Damien remained silent. Elena continued. You no longer have a crowd to hide your team inside. You think a paper book makes you important? No. It makes your timing permanent. Damien laughed. You cannot prove who wrote on that tag. Elena opened the carbon copy book beneath the corridor light. The pressure mark includes your routing abbreviation. Anyone in security knows that. Abbreviation. Not the old one. She pointed to 2 compressed letters beneath the vehicle sequence. W. C. Did not mean West Corridor after the renovation. It meant winter cellar. You stopped using it 4 years ago. Matteo looked at the letters. Why would Damien use an outdated abbreviation? Because he wrote the order from memory. Elena turned to the monthly verification page. The same abbreviation appears in his handwriting here. Damien's voice vanished from the radio. Elena aligned the verification sheet beside the pressure mark. The slanted W, the shortened C, and the heavy final stroke matched. It was not a second proof. It authenticated the writing already preserved inside the same book. Matteo stared at Damien's signature. How many times did you show my people this system every monthly review? And no one listened. They listened long enough to sign. A mechanical hum rose behind the shutter. The west gate had begun opening. Lane's voice broke across the radio. Outer barrier, moving without local approval. Damien had triggered the emergency release from the control room. Matteo looked toward Elena. She was already turning pages. Tag 417 authorized 6 vehicles as 1 unit. Can we stop the unit? We do not stop the vehicles. We cancel the person they are required to follow. She took the convoy channel. Lead supervisor. Your service credential has failed authentication. All vehicles remain outside until individual inspection. A man answered. We have direct authorization from Chief Vale. Chief Vale no longer controls this property. Then we withdraw. No. Elena said. You entered a secured holding lane under a false credential. Turn off every engine and place all keys on the pavement. The response did not come. Matteo said nothing. He let her command the channel. Elena waited 3 seconds. Your refrigeration records were requested 20 minutes ago. You refused because the vehicles are not carrying refrigerated food. If one engine moves, the outer barriers will close around the entire convoy. The first engine shut down, then the second. Within moments, 6 sets of headlights went dark beyond the wall. Lane confirmed that the drivers had placed their keys outside. The west gate stopped halfway open. Damien had lost the convoy without Matteo issuing a single threat. Elena closed the book. Now bring him to the kitchen. Matteo looked at her. Why the kitchen? Because that is where he used your authority to make everyone afraid. She handed Lane the radio. That is where the record should be heard. Matteo nodded. No council chamber. No private office. Elena looked toward the workers gathering beyond the shutter. Everyone who watched him strike me will watch him lose the story. From inside the control room, Damien began shouting that Elena had staged the breach. Matteo did not answer him. He opened the estate channel instead. All department heads, household staff, and security officers report to the main kitchen. Then he looked at Elena and stepped aside. She has the floor. The kitchen filled without its usual noise. Housekeepers stood beside the pantry. Cooks lined the copper counters. Security officers gathered near the service doors with their radios turned down. The family council remained beneath the archway, separated from the staff by nothing except habit. Elena stood at the same marble sink where Damien had ordered her to finish cleaning after he struck her. Her suitcase rested beside the pantry wall. The pale pink record book lay unopened before her. Matteo entered last. He did not take the head of the room. He stopped beside the door and left the center clear. 2 guards brought Damien through the laundry entrance. His jacket had been removed, and his hands were secured in front of him. He looked first at Matteo, then at the council, as though the staff did not exist. This assembly is compromising an active security operation, Damien said. Elena opened the record book. The operation is over. Damien smiled at her. You stopped 6 caterers and invented a conspiracy. Officer Lane stepped forward. The drivers were carrying false credentials. They were contractors following an authorized route. Authorized under Elena's inactive account. Lane said. Damien turned to Matteo. You are letting frightened employees build a case from clerical mistakes. Matteo's answer was quiet. Elena has the floor. Damien stared at him. You would humiliate your own brother for a maid. Matteo did not move. I am making sure the woman you silenced can finish a sentence. Elena looked across the workers. Several had watched Damien strike her. Several more had heard about it and decided that keeping their jobs mattered more than asking questions. She did not ask them to forgive themselves. She turned the record book toward the room. This book tracks every physical service credential issued at this estate. Each numbered tag belongs to one vehicle or cart. A valid tag leaves an original here, a carbon copy beneath it, and a matching entry at the gate. She opened to the cancelled series. Numbers 401 through 425 were removed from service 3 months ago. The red line means no tag after number 409 could be used again. Victor Santoro leaned closer. Yet the convoy carried number 417. Yes, Damien shook his head. A reused number proves poor record keeping. Elena lifted the physical tag, sealed inside a clear evidence sleeve. The number was not reused. The original was removed from rejected stock. She angled the retained carbon beneath the sidelight. Whoever wrote on it pressed the convoy instructions into the page below. The chef saw the impressions first. Westgate. He read, 6 vehicles, temporary kitchen access, family priority. Elena finished. She turned to Damien. You said I wrote those instructions after stealing the gate tag. I said you had the opportunity. No. You said I copied them into the book to frame you. Damien's face remained controlled. That remains possible. Elena placed the physical tag beside the carbon. The pressure marks run downward from the missing original. They could not have been added from this page. The writing happened before the tag left. Security storage. One of the council members examined the sequence. Who had access to that storage? Chief Vale and officers authorized by him. Damien answered immediately. Elena had access until February. Elena nodded. That is true. Then she turned to Officer Lane. When was tag 417 removed? Lane checked the authenticated photographs. After the cancellation line was written. And when did Chief Vale revoke my access? 6 weeks before the cancellation. The room shifted. Damien looked toward Lane. You are interpreting records beyond your training. No, Elena said. He is reading dates. She opened the monthly verification page. Damien signed this book after my access was revoked. His signature confirms the cancelled batch remained in security storage under his control. Damien gave a short laugh. A signature confirms review, not possession. Correct. Correct. Elena placed her fingertip beside the compressed letters beneath the convoy order. That is why the handwriting matters. She showed the old routing abbreviation to the council. W. C. Once meant winter cellar. After the renovation, it meant West Corridor. The estate changed the abbreviation 4 years ago. Victor frowned. Then why does the old form appear here? Because the person who wrote it remembered the system from before the change. Damien's voice sharpened. Dozens of senior employees remember it. Elena turned to the monthly verification sheet. The same outdated form appears beside Damien's handwritten correction last December. The slanted W and shortened C matched the pressure mark. Matteo did not announce the conclusion. He let the room reach it. Damien looked toward the guards, who had once followed every order he gave. This proves someone copied my handwriting. Elena closed the book halfway. Then we examined timing. She asked Lane to display the digital gate record on the kitchen monitor. Elena's stolen credentials approved the convoy at 2:17 that morning. Matteo's forged maintenance order disabled the cameras 25 minutes earlier. Damien's emergency recommendation called for the gate to open after the failures he had created inside the estate. The North Guards were reassigned. Elena said. The facility's runner was removed. The service elevators were disabled. The wrong deliveries were sent to the wrong kitchens. The staff map placed 43 civilians inside the West Corridor. Damian faced Matteo. She is describing normal confusion before a major event. Elena changed the monitor to the convoy manifest, then explained the 4 replacement workers. The names appeared in a neat column. The older maid covered her mouth. One name belonged to a housekeeper whose funeral Elena had attended. Another belonged to a retired porter living in Arizona. The remaining 2 had left the estate years earlier. These people could not arrive tonight, Elena said. Their names existed only to make the head count balance. Damien's confidence slipped. The catering company supplied the list. The list was entered through your terminal. That terminal is shared. Your personal key released the cancelled stock required to create its matching physical tag. Damien turned toward the council. You are listening to a woman who resented my authority. Elena held his gaze. I resented being given responsibility without authority. That is not why you are standing here. I am standing here because you believed everyone would trust your title more than my work. No one looked away this time. Elena displayed the route hidden inside the manifest sequence. The false workers entered first. The equipment followed and blocked both corridor exits. The service carts separated civilian staff from the private elevator. The convoy order ended beneath Matteo Santoro's rooms. Lucia rose slowly from her chair. You intended to isolate me. Damien's expression changed. Only for a second. But the entire kitchen saw it. You were never in danger, he said. Elena answered before Matteo could. Because I moved you. Damien looked at her with open hatred. You were supposed to be gone. The words left his mouth before he understood what they revealed. Matteo stepped forward. Elena raised one hand. He stopped. She did not need him to finish the moment. You dismissed me, she said. You struck me in front of the people whose silence you controlled. You expected the house to fail after I left. Then you planned to use that failure as permission to open the gate. Damien recovered enough to sneer. And you came running back. Yes. Elena looked toward the workers. I came back for the people you placed in that corridor. Not for this house. Not for my job. And not because anyone here had the right to ask. The older maid began to cry. Elena did not pause. Loyalty chosen freely is not obedience. You never understood the difference. Lane received a message through his radio. He read it, then faced Matteo. All 6 vehicles have been searched. The cases contained restraints, signal blockers, duplicate uniforms, and tools for forcing interior locks. No one needed a description beyond that. The convoy had not come to serve dinner. Damien looked toward the council for protection. No one offered it. Matteo addressed the guards. Remove his command credentials. Lane stepped forward and took the black security badge from Damien's coat pocket. The access light on the wall changed from green to red. Damien stared at the color as if it were a personal betrayal. You cannot erase what I built here. Elena closed the record book. You did not build it. You stood above the people who kept it running. The guards escorted Damien toward the service exit. He twisted back toward Matteo. You are choosing her over blood. Matteo's expression remained still. No, I am choosing the truth you expected blood to bury. The door closed behind Damien. No one applauded. Elena would not let justice become entertainment. She collected the physical tag, closed the metal box, and placed it beside her suitcase. Matteo looked at the bruise on her cheek, then at the staff who had failed to defend her. Elena, he said. What happened in this kitchen was done under authority. I gave him. She lifted the suitcase handle. Then decide what that responsibility costs after I am gone. You are still leaving. My return was a choice. So is this. She walked toward the same door through which Damien had been removed. This time, every person in the kitchen stepped aside before she had to ask. Elena reached the rear vestibule before Matteo spoke again. I will not stop you. She kept one hand on the suitcase handle. Then do not turn this doorway into another meeting. I need less than a minute. You need to decide whether the minute is for me or for your conscience. Matteo accepted the distinction. For the people still standing in that kitchen. Elena looked through the glass door at the taxi, waiting beyond the inner drive. Her new life had not disappeared because she returned. The driver had kept the engine running. What are you asking me to do? Nothing. Matteo stepped away from the exit. I am asking whether you want to hear what I say before you leave. Elena considered him, then released the door handle. 1 minute. Matteo returned to the kitchen alone. Elena remained beneath the archway, close enough to hear and close enough to leave. The workers had not moved. Damien's black access badge still rested on the counter beside the cancelled service tag. Matteo looked at the guards first. Remove every security order signed by Damien Vale from active authority. Preserve the orders, the revisions, and the names of everyone who carried them out. Officer Lane nodded. His company accounts frozen. His residence secured as an investigative site. His family status gives him no access. No escort. And no private communication with this estate. Victor Santoro folded his arms. You are announcing consequences before council reviews the evidence. I am removing authority before it can destroy more evidence. Matteo turned toward the council. The carbon record will be examined independently. Every action will be documented. No one will be punished because I am angry. No one will be protected because he is family. Lucia watched him from beside the pantry, and the woman he struck, Matteo, looked toward Elena. She gave him no rescue from the question. He struck her with authority I gave him. Damien had chosen the act, but Matteo had built the structure that made resistance dangerous. He faced the staff. I allowed one man to control security. Discipline. Access. And the complaints filed against him. I accepted clean reports without asking who repaired the damage beneath them. I praised order that was created by fear, and I benefited from work I never bothered to name. The older maid lowered her eyes. Matteo continued. Elena Marquez warned this estate 3 times that responsibility without authority was unsafe. Her requests were sent back to the man whose power they challenged. I did not read them. I should have. No one had ever heard Matteo Santoro confess negligence before his employees. He did not make the confession dramatic. He stated it like a debt, entered into a permanent record. I am sorry. Elena. The words crossed the kitchen without demanding a response. You were assaulted in my house by a man carrying my authority. You were dismissed for protecting people I was responsible for. You were forced to prove your value after 8 years of proving it every day. I cannot undo that. I will not insult you by pretending. Tonight makes us even. Elena held his gaze. An apology did not restore trust. It did establish where responsibility belonged. What changes after I leave? She asked. Matteo turned to Lane. Effective now. Estate security has no authority to discipline civilian employees. All physical restraint requires an immediate safety threat and a recorded review outside the security chain. No verbal order can open a service entrance, alter a staff route, or override a rejected credential. Complaints against department heads go to independent counsel. Victor frowned. You cannot redesign the estate in a kitchen. No, Matteo said. But I can stop the practices that failed tonight. The permanent structure will be written, reviewed, and signed before the next shift. The chef stepped forward. What happens to the people Damien punished before tonight? Every case from the last 5 years will be reopened. By whom? Not by me. Matteo looked toward Elena, but did not attach her name to the task. An outside workplace investigator will receive the statements and the preserved records. Employees may speak with counsel present. No manager will see a statement before it is protected. The older maid wiped her face. Some people left because they were afraid. They will be contacted and paid for their time. If Damien denied wages, leave, promotion, or employment through misconduct, the estate will compensate the loss. Victor took 1 step forward. That could involve hundreds of claims. Then we will answer hundreds of claims. Matteo faced the council. The cost does not disappear because we refuse to count it. Lucia's expression softened by a fraction. Officer Lane placed Damien's badge inside an evidence envelope. What charges are being referred? Assault, credential fraud, unlawful restraint, financial misconduct, and conspiracy connected to the convoy. Matteo looked at the pale pink book. The referral will use the authenticated record Elena preserved. No invented confession. No private punishment. No disappearance, disguised as family business. The guards understood the order. Damien would face documented consequences rather than the violence he had once controlled. Elena watched Matteo choose exposure over secrecy. It mattered. It did not erase the bruise. A young kitchen assistant raised her hand. Sir, what happens to us for not helping her? Matteo did not answer for Elena. She stepped beneath the archway. That Depends on what you do after knowing what silence costs. The assistant began to apologize. Elena stopped her gently. Write what you saw. Tell the truth even where it makes you look afraid. Then speak sooner the next time someone with less power is standing alone. The chef removed the master kitchen keys from his belt. I watched, because I thought Damien could close this kitchen. He could have, Elena said. That was why he chose a room full of employees. The older maid looked toward the sink. I laughed when he called you a housekeeper playing security chief. You did. I was afraid he would turn on me. He counted on that. Elena did not offer quick forgiveness. Guilt is useful only when it changes your next decision. Matteo listened as she gave the room what he could not. Not absolution. A standard. Lane received a call from the outer barrier. The convoy drivers had been transferred to corporate investigators and local authorities with the false credentials preserved. The 6 vehicles remained sealed. Damien's electronic access had been revoked across every Santoro property. His accounts were frozen, pending review. His name had also been removed from the emergency command charter. The system he had treated as personal property continued without him. Matteo asked the council secretary for a blank resolution. Victor gave him a warning look. You should wait for legal review. I will wait before assigning permanent authority. I will not wait before limiting mine. Matteo wrote 4 immediate restrictions. Security could not discipline civilian staff. The chief could not control complaint records. Physical access and digital approval required separate officers. A civilian operations director could suspend any service order that failed authentication. He signed the page. Lucia signed as counsel witness. After a moment, Victor signed beneath her. Matteo placed the resolution on the counter where Elena could read it. This is not an offer. It takes effect whether you stay or leave. Elena examined each clause. What about the workers Damien moved into the West Corridor? They receive paid leave, medical support if requested, and independent interviews. And Officer Lane stiffened. Matteo looked at him. He told the truth after obeying an improper restraint order. He is suspended from physical duty during review. Not punished for testifying. The review will decide whether he remains in security. Lane nodded, accepting both accountability and protection. Elena returned the resolution to the counter. That is a beginning. Matteo did not call it justice. I know. Her taxi driver entered the vestibule and checked the time. We need to leave in 5 minutes if you want the morning train. Elena looked at the clock. Rosebridge remained open to her. The apartment. Salary. Staff authority. And Monday's start date were still waiting. Matteo reached into his jacket. Then remembered he had left it in the corridor. He did not produce a check or a grand promise. Instead, he asked the council secretary for a second blank page. There is a position this estate should have created years ago. Elena's expression cooled. I did not stay to negotiate employment. I know. Then, do not make an offer in front of people who will mistake pressure for honor. Matteo placed the blank page on the counter without writing a title. You will receive a complete proposal through your attorney. It will not require an answer before you begin your new job. It will not affect your settlement or any claim. And it will carry authority, independent of me. Elena studied him. What authority? Whatever is necessary to prevent another person from being given your responsibility without your power. That is not specific enough. No. Matteo slid the blank page toward her. That is why you would write the limits before I write the title. The taxi driver called softly from the vestibule. Elena had 4 minutes. She could leave the page untouched and never return. She could also define the standard the estate would have to meet without promising herself to it. She opened her bag and removed a black pen. This is not acceptance. Understood. This does not pause my departure. Understood. My conditions are not the beginning of a negotiation over my right to refuse. Matteo stepped back from the counter. Understood. Elena wrote the first condition. No guard would touch an employee merely for refusing an unverified order. She wrote the second. Every spoken access command would create a permanent record. Then she continued until 7 conditions stood between her freedom and any future the Santoro estate might offer. Elena finished the 7th condition and placed the pen beside the blank resolution. Her final line required a written right to refuse Matteo Santoro without losing her position, salary, housing, or professional standing. Matteo read every condition without touching the page. No revisions, he said. Victor looked up sharply. You have not reviewed the financial exposure. Matteo kept his attention on Elena. Her right to refuse is not financial exposure. It is a limit on executive authority. Yes, that is the point. Elena closed her bag. You have not earned an answer tonight. I know. You may send a proposal to my attorney. I will. The title cannot exist only because you feel guilty. It will exist because this estate failed without independent civilian authority. And if I decline, the position remains. You hire someone qualified, and the protections remain. Matteo signed beneath Elena's 7 conditions. Lucia added her name as counsel witness. Victor hesitated, then signed after reading the clause that prevented Matteo from withdrawing the authority privately. Elena folded no papers and accepted no promises. She took her suitcase and walked through the employee entrance. Matteo followed only as far as the awning. Rain silvered the drive beyond them. The taxi driver opened the trunk. Elena. She turned. Matteo stood beneath the estate light without his white jacket. His authority reduced to the truth of what he had done. I will not ask you to forgive me. Good. I will make the changes whether you return or not. That is where an apology becomes useful. He nodded. May I contact you after the proposal reaches your attorney? You may ask once, and if the answer is no, you live with it. I will. Elena entered the taxi. Matteo did not place a hand on the door or ask the driver where she was going. He watched the car pass through the north entrance and disappear beyond the trees. At 6 that morning, Elena boarded the train to Connecticut. Her cheek still ached. Her future did not. Rosebridge Senior Living gave her an office with a wide window, a working budget, and a staff meeting on her first afternoon. The executive director introduced her as Facilities Operations Manager. No one shortened the title. No one asked her to repair a broken system before granting her access to it. Elena spent her first week reviewing evacuation routes, vendor records, and overnight staffing. By Friday, she had corrected a medication refrigeration backup plan that 3 departments had assumed belonged to someone else. She did not need a Mafia boss to prove she was competent. She had needed one to stop benefiting from pretending otherwise. The Santoro proposal arrived through her attorney 9 days later. It contained 23 pages. Elena read the authority section first. The proposed independent director of household operations and staff safety controlled service access, civilian staffing, vendor suspension, and workplace complaints. The director could halt any security order that lacked documented authentication. The position carried its own budget. Independent counsel. and authority to hire a deputy. Termination required a recorded vote of 3 council members. Matteo could not remove the director alone. A separate clause guaranteed 12 months of salary if anyone interfered with that independence. Elena marked 3 weaknesses and returned the document without an answer. The complaint office still reported too close to the family. The security review did not include former employees. The refusal clause protected salary, but not professional references. Matteo accepted all 3 corrections. He did not call her. 2 weeks later, the outside investigation issued its first report. Damien Vale had used security accounts to approve false vendors and divert money from maintenance budgets. The convoy had been intended to isolate Lucia, seize her financial archive, and force Matteo into emergency command procedures. Damien controlled. The original carbon copybook authenticated the cancelled credentials and linked the physical route to Damien's access. No confession was required. No private punishment replaced evidence. Damien was formally charged and held without authority. Family protection, or access to the people he had frightened. Employees from 5 years of disciplinary cases received letters from independent counsel. 14 returned statements. 7 received unpaid wages and corrected employment records. 3 accepted reinstatement. Others refused and kept the compensation. Officer Lane completed his review. He was disciplined for participating in Elena's restraint, protected for telling the truth, and reassigned only after additional training. The chef installed a direct incident alarm outside the security chain. The older maid became the first elected staff representative. The kitchen, where everyone had looked away, now displayed the emergency refusal policy beside the weekly schedule. Matteo signed each reform before Elena made her decision. On the 38th day, Elena returned to the estate with her attorney. Her bruise had faded. She wore a charcoal suit, a cream blouse, and the expression of a woman arriving by choice. Matteo met her in the council room rather than the kitchen. The final contract waited unopened before her. "You may still walk away," he said. "I know. Rosebridge deserves the work you are giving them. They offered me a permanent consulting agreement." Matteo did not hide his surprise. "I can remain with them 2 days each month, and this position begins with a 6-month term. I choose my deputy. I control my schedule. I report to the 3-person committee. Not to you. All written into the contract. If our personal relationship ever affects my work, the personal relationship ends first." Matteo held her gaze. "Agreed." Elena signed. She did not return as a maid promoted by a grateful man. She entered as the independent director who had written the limits of his power. Her first order suspended every unverified service credential across the Santoro properties. Her second created paid training for civilian employees who refused unsafe instructions. Her third moved the pale pink carbon book into an evidence archive under dual control. Matteo received no private key. 6 weeks after she signed, he came to her office at 5 minutes before closing. He knocked and waited. Elena finished an email before looking up. "This is not an operations matter," he said. "Then you have 30 seconds before I leave. I would like to take you to dinner. No guards inside the restaurant." "Agreed." "No private dining room." "Agreed." "I choose the place." "Agreed." "You do not send a car." "I assumed you would drive yourself." She studied him for a moment. "What happens if I say no, I leave your office? And tomorrow, you remain the director. I remain accountable to your rules. They are not my rules. They are the rules." Elena closed her laptop. Friday at 7. Matteo smiled. But he did not cross the room. Send me the address. I will. Their first dinner took place in a small Italian restaurant 20 miles from the estate. Elena arrived alone. Matteo waited at the table without an entourage. He asked about Rosebridge, her sister in New Jersey, and the apartment she had chosen instead of estate housing. He did not ask when she would move closer to him. At the end of the evening, he walked her to her car. May I see you again? Yes. She opened the driver's door. That is not a permanent promise. I would not trust one given this quickly. For the first time, Elena laughed with him. Months later, the West Gate remained closed to every undocumented order. The staff no longer lowered their eyes when security entered the kitchen. Matteo still carried power. He had simply learned that love did not grant him more of it. Elena kept her own home, her own contract, and the right to leave any room. She also kept choosing to return, not because she had nowhere else to go, because freedom had made her loyalty honest, and because the man waiting at the table had finally learned to ask instead of command. Would you have taken the new life waiting outside, or stayed long enough to save the people who once looked away?